Hi, Gary for NY Divorce Facts, here with Matcha, Kosho, Yuzu, and on the far cage, out of range of the camera, is Azuki. The green cheeks have been pretty mellow for the past few days. For those people who own birds, you realize that in the wintertime, the birds are actually much more mellow because they're not in their mating mood. No hormones going around. Come springtime, love is in the air and their hormones go crazy, and birds act like really hormonal teenagers. Angsty, moody, and occasionally violent. During the breeding season, Matcha can be very aggressive and will bite a lot. Real obnoxious. But right now he's very mellow and very friendly. And Azuki has been flying onto my shoulder today a lot and just purring and cooing and just generally happy with the world. Apropos of really nothing, I'm going to talk today about a problem that I see quite a lot. People who do not get married and then buy a house together. They think that, oh, marriage is a real hassle and it's just easier not to get married. Well, if you don't want to get married, that's fine. But if you're not married, for God's sakes, don't buy a house together. You will actually create more problems for yourself by buying a house when you're not married than if you get married and buy the house, because the laws are different. If you are married, any property bought during marriage is marital property, including a house. And the judge, under divorce law, has a lot more flexibility on how to deal with houses. And I've got other videos and articles on my website about that, so I don't want to go into that in too much detail. But let's talk about what happens when you are not married. The judge does not have much flexibility. And the laws regarding dividing property between unmarried people is far more complex and more difficult than dividing it among married people. And part of the reason is because the laws were designed to deal with commercial issues, not to deal with personal issues. So, for example, if you and a person buy a 100-acre farm and you're not getting along, you do a partition action and the judge parts the property. You'll get 50 acres, your partner will get 50 acres. This doesn't work well with a residential house, but the procedures are about the same. Hey, look who came over. Hey there, sweetheart. So the procedures are the same and they are complicated. So, for example, when you are doing a partition action, you have to prove to the court first that the parties cannot work together and therefore the property must be sold. Okay, for an unmarried couple living together in a house, that's probably easy, but it's still a procedural step you've got to go through. The next thing that the judge does is, after the judge makes the determination the property has to be sold, is the property is then sold by auction. Now, in a divorce, the judge will appoint a realtor who will look for the best and highest price, marketing it, and doing what they can to sell it. Well, with the partition, we do an auction on the courthouse steps, and you're not going to get the best and highest price on that. What's going to happen is you may end up getting a terrible price. I had a case with a house that was in Merrick, and it went for auction for $5,000, and there was still a $300,000 mortgage on it. That meant that my client didn't have the house anymore, and he was still on the hook for the mortgage. Now, there are some ways around this. If you were absolutely intent on buying a house when you are not married, then as part of the process, go to your attorney and get an agreement, a signed written agreement between you and your partner to determine what will happen to the house in the event you two break up. You can then put into the contract that if the parties break up, you will use whatever realtor is out there, and the realtor will find the best and highest price, and you will also put into the agreement how the money will be distributed. Maybe it will be 50-50. Maybe you put in the most of the down payment, so you will get more of the money back. However it works out, but you still have to get that agreement. So again, my advice is, one, if you're not married, don't buy a house together. If you are going to buy that house, have your attorney draft an agreement between you and your partner to deal with all the contingencies if you two break up and the house has to be sold. That way you can avoid going to court for the partition action. You do not want to go for that partition action. This is a complicated area, by the way, and I've got a very lengthy article on my website on it, and I have also done a 12-minute documentary on it. That's how complex this is. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call at 516-352-2999 for my free 15-minute consultation. But again, rather than consult with me, just don't buy the house.